Once there was a girl named Jenny. She was like all the other girls except for one thing. She always wore a green ribbon around her neck. So, those are the words that begin the famous children's story, The Green Ribbon. If you, like me, went to grade school in the early 2000s in America, you're likely familiar with this story. It was a popular read for the younger grades around Halloween. In fact, even if you went to school in the late 80s or the 90s, you might be familiar with this story too. The book that birthed this version of the story is In a Dark, Dark Room and Other Scary Stories by Alvin Schwartz, with original illustrations by Dirk Zimmer. Schwartz's name might sound familiar as the author of the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark series, among many other books. But today I just want to home in on In a Dark, Dark Room and all of its terrifying tales. This book is part of the I Can Read series, a collection which also includes the likes of Frog and Toad plus Flat Stanley. And perhaps that's part of the book's appeal. It's meant for the youngest of readers, and yet it's so eerie. Or is it? If you remember any portion of this book, it's almost certainly The Green Ribbon. That story remains all too relevant in the public consciousness even today. But what about the other stories? How do they hold up? As with many of my other videos, I want to revisit this children's literature and see what new meaning it takes on for an adult reader, if any, as well as what memories it may trigger. So, with that, let's jump into the text. The book's first story is called The Teeth. The text reads, I was hurrying home in the dark when I saw a man walking toward me. Do you know what time it is? I asked. The man lit a match to look at his watch. It is 8 o'clock, he said. Then he grinned at me. His teeth were 3 inches long. When I saw them, I ran. Soon I came to another man. Why are you running? The man asked. I just met a man with teeth this long, I said. It scared me. My teeth are longer than that, said the man, and he grinned at me. When I saw his teeth, I ran. Soon I came to another man. Why are you running? He asked me. I just saw a man with teeth this long, I said. That's nothing, said the man. Did you ever see teeth this long? I took one look, and I ran all the way home. This story is so strange, but in a good way. Is it really that scary? Perhaps, if you were to put yourself in the boy's shoes, it certainly would be pretty horrifying to meet not one, but 3 men with uncanny smiles and lengthy teeth. Maybe it doesn't read as that scary to me because the whole creepy smile with unnatural teeth is such a cliche in horror writing these days. But looking back, this very well may have unsettled me as a kid. I honestly don't remember. Still, while I understand the story is for young readers, I can't help but feel it's missing something. The ending didn't feel conclusive enough to me. What's really going on here? What exactly am I supposed to make of the story? Perhaps it's a lesson in staying away from strangers. Just what was our narrator doing out so late on his own anyway? Maybe he should have been at home all along and his final sprint home is the lesson learned. On the other hand, we could perhaps read the story as a window into a child's perspective. When you're a kid, you don't have the clearest conception of the world or other people. Even minimal abnormal details on another person stand out as noteworthy and irregular. Our narrator here might be exaggerating what's truly going on given their limited framework. We know it's dark since the first man had to light a match to check his watch. The dark could just be playing tricks on our protagonist here. But at the same time, it kind of feels like the adults are trying to torment the kid. Of course, that too could be part of our speaker's limited view. We might not have the most reliable narrator on our hands here. We just don't know. But it does remind me of Maurice Sendak, author of Where the Wild Things Are. He famously stated the wild things were based on his perception of his relatives when he was a child. For more on that, check out my video on that book. I will be mentioning it again later in this video. Like I said, this is a strange story, and when I get right down to the heart of it, I do love strange stories. Our next story is titled In the Graveyard. A woman in a graveyard sat. Ooh, very short and very fat. Ooh, she saw 3 corpses carried in. Ooh, very tall and very thin. Ooh. To the corpses, the woman said, Will I be like you when I am dead? Ooh. To the woman, the corpses said, You will be like us when you are dead. Ooh. To the corpses, the woman said, Ah! This one is more funny than anything. Kind of cute, in fact. As a poetry lover, I have to appreciate the structure. It moves things along and helps the ending land. What do I mean by that? Well, there's the repeated use of the word ooh. As each stanza ends with that ooh sound, the punchline comes in that much stronger at the end when we switch to our ah sound. That said, I also wonder if the repeated ooh says something more. Is the narrator perhaps a ghost in the graveyard? Who knows? In any case, this one is just fun for readers of any age. And now, the story you've all been waiting for, The Green Ribbon. Once there was a girl named Jenny. She was like all the other girls except for one thing. She always wore a green ribbon around her neck. There was a boy named Alfred in her class. Alfred liked Jenny, and Jenny liked Alfred. One day, he asked her, "Why do you wear that ribbon all the time?" "I cannot tell you," said Jenny. But Alfred kept asking, "Why do you wear it?" And Jenny would say, "It is not important." Jenny and Alfred grew up and fell in love. One day, they got married. After their wedding, Alfred said, "Now that we are married, you must tell me about the green ribbon." "You still must wait," said Jenny. "I will tell you when the right time comes." Years passed. Alfred and Jenny grew old. One day, Jenny became very sick. The doctor told her she was dying. Jenny called Alfred to her side. "Alfred," she said, "now I can tell you about the green ribbon. Untie it, and you will see why I could not tell you before." Slowly and carefully, Alfred untied the ribbon, and Jenny's head fell off. So usually when I do these videos on children's literature, I don't draw too much attention to the illustrations. I want to remain more focused on the writing. But here it's kind of impossible to leave these drawings unacknowledged. Dirk Zimmer's style really is so off-putting while still being child-friendly. The very first illustration in The Green Ribbon demonstrates that off-putting nature. There's something kind of eerie about Jenny, beyond just the green ribbon. It feels a little uncanny valley, like she's not quite human. What's more, the narrator tells us that Jenny liked Alfred, but this picture doesn't really seem to show that. She doesn't look all that happy to be talking to Alfred. Sure, maybe it's because they're talking about the ribbon, but what about the next illustration? Jenny and Alfred are getting married, they're purportedly in love, and yet Jenny doesn't look happy in the slightest. I want to touch on more of these pictures later, but for now let me just say this. I believe one of the reasons this story sticks with us so much is because, for many of us, this was the first story we ever read that presented us with a twist. And what a twist it is, especially for a child. I do kind of wonder if I'd be able to put together the purpose of the ribbon without prior knowledge of the story. I want to say yes, but as we saw with the 2-sentence horror story video, my predictive powers aren't incredible by any stretch. What's more, for its length, there are some incredibly big ideas in this story. Things like obsession, keeping things from a partner and from the world, and deathbed confessions. Are some secrets better left kept? Or, on the other hand, if Jenny had wanted her secret kept, even in death, would Alfred have respected that request? To me, there's a misogyny that's pretty plain in this story. Alfred is obsessed with the green ribbon, and once he marries Jenny, he feels it's his right to know the truth about the matter. But why would that be the case? Does he feel she owes him, or does he feel he owns her? These thoughts again point us back to just how unhappy Jenny seems in all these pictures. It feels more like she's a victim than a willing partner. I honestly don't think I'm doing the story justice. There's a lot here. You should read Carmen Maria Machado's The Husband Stitch. It's an amazing short story based on the green ribbon and tackles sex, misogyny, womanhood, and more. It is rather explicit in terms of sex, so be advised, but it's well worth the read. I think about it all the time. It further illustrates just how prominent this story is in culture overall. Machado was born in 1986, and she published her story in 2014. The green ribbon clearly hasn't just affected my generation, and I don't think it will stop with my generation either. Our next story is the titular In a Dark, Dark Room. In a dark, dark wood, there was a dark, dark house. And in that dark, dark house, there was a dark, dark room. And in that dark, dark room, there was a dark, dark chest. And in that dark, dark chest, there was a dark, dark shelf. And on that dark, dark shelf, there was a dark, dark box. And in that dark, dark box, there was a ghost. Again, this one just feels kind of funny, to be honest. Fans of the channel know that I'm really not into repetition, but I can excuse it here seeing as this book is meant for early readers. What's more, no matter the age of the reader, the repetition clearly makes you sense a pattern, and that pattern makes you feel like you're building to something. That feeling of escalation makes the ending both stronger and funnier, in my opinion. Not only does this feel like a children's story, but it also feels like a story that could have been written by a child. And that makes it kind of adorable and endearing. Like, as a child, what do you know about scary stories? Oh, that they're supposed to have a ghost, right? I don't know, it's just cute. Our next story is called The Night It Rained. It was late at night. I was driving past the cemetery when I saw a boy standing in the rain. "Do you want a ride home?" I asked. "Yes, please," he said. "I live on Front Street, next to the school." I handed him my old sweater. "It is cold tonight," I said, "and you are wet. You had better put this on." After that, we did not talk. When we stopped at his house, I said, "Keep the sweater. I will get it tomorrow." "What is your name?" "Jim," he said. "Thanks for the ride." I stopped for the sweater the next day. A woman came to the door. "Is Jim at home?" I asked. "I have come to pick up my sweater." She looked at me in a strange way. "It must have been another boy," she said. "Jim is our son, but he has been dead for almost a year. He is buried in the cemetery." I told her how sorry I was, and I left. I did not know what to think. The next morning I went to the cemetery. I wanted to see Jim's grave. Lying across the grave was my sweater. So this one was kind of interesting for me because I remembered this story, but not from this book. I read a variation of this story in middle school. In that version, the driver is a young man who offers his Letterman jacket to a young female hitchhiker. Just as in this version, the young man eventually finds his jacket folded up on the young woman's grave. If that sounds familiar to any of you, let me know. But we'll talk about that more later. I honestly don't have much to say about this story beyond that. I think it's a pretty great story for kids. Pretty spooky, but not too scary at all wrapped up with some fascinating implications. If you were the main character, you would have to wonder if you were insane. I also can't help wondering if this experience had any kind of moral effect on him. Would he think twice about picking children up in his car from then on out? While the story does end with a nice little bow, I just have to consider what happens next. One thing I actually didn't pick up on the first time around was how the main character found Jim outside the cemetery. I didn't clock that at first. I thought Jim was just walking on the side of the road. The fact that we start and end at that location certainly adds to the story's poeticism. The collection's next story is The Pirate. Ruth was spending her vacation with her cousin Susan. "A pirate once lived in our house," Susan told Ruth. "He died in the room where you are staying. His ghost is supposed to haunt that room, but we have never seen it." "I don't believe in ghosts," said Ruth. But the thought of a pirate haunting her room scared her a little. Before she got into bed that night, Ruth looked everywhere. She looked under the bed and under the rug, in the closet and in the drawers, behind the dresser and behind the curtains, and anywhere else a ghost might hide. But she did not find a thing. Ruth yawned and stretched and got into bed. She turned off the light and snuggled under the covers. "Just as I thought," she said to herself. "There is no one in this room but me." Then a big voice said, "And me." This story is kind of fun for demonstrating how even the least superstitious of people can get scared from time to time. And honestly, that ending is pretty scary, even when taking away the supernatural element. Imagine yourself in Ruth's position. You scour your bedroom, looking for something you fear might be there. Once you're satisfied with the evidence, you get tucked into bed, only for your senses to prove you're not alone after all. Sounds like some of those urban legends you hear about. The illustration also works well here for showing that the room is truly empty. It's possible a voice could be coming in from the window or behind the door, maybe Susan's voice, but it isn't described as a little girl's voice, is it? The collection's final piece is The Ghost of John. Have you seen The Ghost of John? Long white bones and the flesh all gone. Ooh, wouldn't it be chilly with no skin on? How cute is this one? I like that in the third line you can either read it as gone or Gone, and you'll still end up with a rhyme either way. As it turns out, this poem was written by an 8-year-old. Is that not sweet or what? How awesome would it be to be 8 years old and have your own poem included in an illustrated book? In fact, at the end of the book, or at least the 2017 version, we're told the origins behind all these stories. That's why on the cover it says "Retold by Alvin Schwartz." None of these are original stories, just retellings as written by Schwartz. The Teeth is based on a 1920s story from Suriname. In the Graveyard is a shortened version of the song "Old Woman, All Skin and Bone." The Green Ribbon is based on European folk myth about beheading victims who had their heads reattached via thread. In a Dark, Dark Room doesn't even have any specific attribution. It's apparently just a well-known little story in the Western English-speaking world. The Pirate is based on a reference in A Dictionary of British Folktales in the English Language by Catherine M. Briggs, and The Ghost of John was written by little Lynette M. Lee in 1979. I believe I mentioned this earlier, but it's just amazing how these stories get to live on in this form. from folktale to children's books to the common culture. It really echoes and emphasizes what this book says in its foreword. Most of us like scary stories because we like feeling scared. When there is no real danger, feeling scared is fun. The best time for these stories is at night, in front of a fire or in the dark. Tell them slowly and quietly, and everyone will have a good time. We touched on this in the Frog and Toad video and the Where the Wild Things Are video, but frightening fiction is important for children. Fear is a fascinating emotion and one we learn from when confronted. Books like Where the Wild Things Are and In a Dark, Dark Room may frighten children, but at the same time, they know enough to know it's not real. A reader's first experiences with fiction are so valuable, as we've seen in stories and in real life over and over again. Just as I said earlier, that's one reason the Green Ribbon lives on. It was a story unlike any stories we'd ever seen before, and it came to us at such a formative age. But what do you think? Am I talking crazy? Do you agree with me? Disagree? Am I reading too much into things again? What do you think of the stories in this collection? Please tell me everything. And hey, before you go, take a look at this poem from one of my patrons. This one is Star Stuff by Adela. When I see stars in my dark sky, thinking I am of their twinkling dust, a tempting doubt I cannot deny. Just the devil's sinful shimmering lust. A stretching universe I just don't feel, in a galaxy you can't explain. All of Sagan's questions I've concealed from God, for I have only grief to gain. It's not the stars that make me ill at ease, or moon or sun or planet, all God's game. Grasping faith I am brought to my knees, the void of space is all I have to blame. Earth dust is all I want when I am dead. Banish all this star stuff from my head. For the chance to feature your work at the end of one of my videos, or if you just like what I do here and want to support, you can donate to my Patreon too. You'll get early access to videos, entry to the community Discord, and priority review for your work over on the second channel. You're seeing my patrons' names on screen right now, and I genuinely can't thank them enough. To support the channel in other ways, please like, comment, subscribe, hype, all that stuff you already know about. You're smart. You can follow me on my socials if you want, but no matter what, keep reading, keep writing, and ultimately keep in mind, this is a rough draft. I know this costume might not look like much, but don't let it ever be said that I don't do anything for you guys. I don't know how the Phantom keeps this on his face. His is probably like molded for him, I don't know. Also, like, slicking back my hair took so much more than I thought it would, and I couldn't even get the back or the sides very well. The cape and the mask together were like $20. Not a ton in the grand scheme of things, but like, you only see me from the sternum up anyway, so I don't know what I went to all this effort for. Like I said, never let it be said I don't do anything for you guys.